Any supplier that's on the buyer's short list can solve the buyer's problem. So how do you get them to choose? It isn't about what you sell. It's about how you help them navigate the problem-solving process and implement a solution to their problems.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm delighted to have a great guest today, Dave Brock. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Great, John. I have been looking forward to this for years. I've been such a fan of your broadcasts and all. I just wondered, when would I get to be able to stand here and have a great conversation with you? So thanks for inviting me.
It's absolutely our pleasure. And for those that don't know, Dave Brock's an author. He's authored the book Sales Manager's Survival Guide. Great book, particularly for anybody moving into sales management. It's the first one you should pick up. So, and Dave's a leading thinker in the world of B2B sales. So we're delighted to have you, Dave. Thank you very much. Look, I know you've been working on some research projects with people like Brent Adamson and others, looking at the future of sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we'd start with that discussion. Let's spend about 5 minutes talking about what you see as the future of sales based on what you're learning through that research.
Yeah, and I think the way I'll respond to this is a little bit counterintuitive, but hopefully it'll be an aha, is that we focus on the future of sales because we're selling professionals, but the real question we need to be talking about is the future of buying and how's buying changed. And then now, what do we do to engage the buyer as they're changing what they do and how they're changing really profoundly?
Yeah, I'm with you on this 1,000% because we're here to help the buyer make a decision, right? We help the buyer go through a buying process.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look so introspectively at ourselves and how we go about selling and our sales process, etc. We really sometimes forget that we're there to help the buyer.
Yeah. And so I think the fastest way to learn about the future of selling is to start talking about the future of buying and what the buyer's facing. And really, some of the common themes that we see coming up are things like increasing complexity, the complexity of their businesses, of what happens to them every day, and so on and so forth. How they deal with that, how they cope with that. You've seen some of the stuff that Gartner has published in the last 2 years or so, really focused around sense making, and that really becomes a real issue. Is not so much what am I trying to buy, but how do I make sense of all this stuff I face in doing my job and achieving my goals. The other thing then that you start seeing from that too, and this has been published by Gartner, and it's been something that I've been doing a lot of work on too, is this whole area of decision confidence. And again, it's not, am I choosing the right product or solution, but do I have confidence in the decision path that I'm going down for my business and for myself? So the future of buying has really changed around complexity, sense making, decision confidence. And then when you start looking at that, you then start tying in all this stuff around digital business transformation.
I've heard a lot of people saying, the buyers are getting more and more sophisticated, and we need to get more sophisticated to help them, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people think the buyers are getting better at buying and then buying more efficiently, effectively. And what I'm finding a little bit is, because of all the complexity and the other issues you're talking about, a lot of buying decisions never get to the decision, probably more than ever in the past. And therefore, we've got to be very careful that we can help the buyer through the process, but also that we don't invest too much time and effort in something where a decision is not going to be made.
Well, and that's absolutely right. It's old data, but 53% of buying journeys end in no decision made. And it's because the buyer loses their direction. They don't know what to do. And so this comes back to this theme of complexity. How do I address this very complex situation? How do we look at a buyer's team that says, I have a bunch of diverse people with different agendas. How do we get those people to align around what are we trying to accomplish and what are we trying to achieve? How do we do that? How do we reach a decision? And how do we move forward? And so buyers simply get confused, they get lost, and as a result, they get diverted. They get diverted to the latest crisis, and so they never finish their buying journey. So that's that issue again around complexity, buying simplification, guiding them through their buyer journey, and so on.
So for the way I read it, then that's either a problem for the sales organization, if the buyer's going through all that complexity and struggling with it, or it's an opportunity. And I guess it depends on how we approach it as to whether it's a problem or an opportunity. Is that right?
Well, see, it's both, but I really like to opt on the opportunity side, because think of this. Think of the unaddressed opportunity. We and our competitors are going after that 47% of people that can manage to get through that buying journey. There's that 53% of people who had money committed, who had a problem that they wanted to solve and wanted to do something, but they just got lost on the way. I'd much rather, leave it to my competition to go after that 47%. I'll win my fair share of those, but nobody's going after helping that buyer on those 53%. And that's a gold mine for me.
Okay, well, let's talk about how you do that in a moment. But I also think there's an opportunity if we are better able and better structured and set up to be able to help the buyer through their buying journey, we can probably convert some of the 53% to end up with a decision. Is that true, or you?
Well, we can convert a huge number of those.
Yeah,
and you just kind of think of it logically. Is you can start thinking is they get lost. They don't know how to buy. And it's less about which product do I select, but more about, again, how do we align diverse agendas within our own organization? How do we look at this where we probably don't buy this stuff every day? We may have bought something a few years ago or so on and so forth. So everything that's changed about how we should buy and what questions we should be asking, what we should be looking at has changed, and we simply don't know. But guess what? The salesperson goes through that dozens to hundreds of times in their career. We are experts at how customers should buy, and we can create a lot of value if we don't focus so much on buy my product, but here's how I can help you navigate through and solve your problem.
I love it, and you're talking my language there. But I think it's always been the case, but it's more and more the case that in this day and age, that with the complexities and everything else you've been talking about, some of the salespeople I know that are outstanding, the customers just love them because they're really nothing about their product, nothing to do with the offering and the services. Yep. It's all about helping them through that process to come to a conclusion. And then the end result is products and services these days are pretty commoditized. So right. The differentiator is the selling organization and particularly the salesperson. And if they can help the customer buy, it doesn't matter whether they buy their product or another product from the customer's point of view, but from their point of view, they're going to get the sale.
Well, that's exactly it. Is any supplier that's on the buyer's short list can solve the buyer's problem. So how do you get them to choose? It isn't about what you sell. It's about how you help them navigate the problem-solving process and implement a solution to their problem. So it's helping them through their buyer's journey and so on. There's another aspect to this that adds kind of another layer of complexity, and that's kind of information overload and overwhelm that the buyers are facing is, right now, if I look at buying something for my organization or for myself, and we know all the buyers, I let my fingers do the walking through Google. And I can hit on all sorts of websites. I can hit on all sorts of thought leadership sites. I can hit on all sorts of things saying, this is what you do, this is why you do it, so on and so forth. So I have this overwhelming amount of information available to me through digital channels. I've not yet engaged a salesperson. And how do I put it together in some meaningful way? Again, how do I make sense of it? How do I sort through the fake news? Yep. Or the trolls or opinion shapers and opinion leaders who may not know anything? How do I find the really genuine stuff? But then how do I piece that together in something that means something to me?
I think that's probably a great spot to leave that first discussion. Let's get together fairly soon and we'll have another one. So the bottom line I heard, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, the world of buying is becoming much more complex, and there's all sorts of things, pressures on the buyers, etc. Decisions are being either delayed or no decision made more and more. And the job is of a selling organization, and recognizing that it's more around helping the buyer through their buying journey rather than trying to sell our product.
Exactly. And if we go back to the way we started this conversation of what's the future of selling? And the answer to the future of selling is derived from answering the question of what's the future of buying.
Love it. Thanks, Dave. I'm really looking forward to our next discussion. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks. Look forward to it, John.